Protect your DNA. BioPQQ can promote formation of new mitochondria. Infowarsstore.com.
So amid the ongoing investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of a private email server, as well as it was just hours before the release of the official Benghazi report, the Attorney General, who is overseeing that investigation, decided to meet with Hillary Clinton's husband privately and unannounced on an unmarked plane for 30 minutes this week. So, of course, everyone is in an uproar about this. Even the Democrats are saying this is a little bit fishy. Now, this was a private meeting. It took place on the west side of Sky Harbor International Airport on board a parked private plane. Of course, the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, her office is in charge of this investigation involving Clinton's email server and, of course, the potential charges that are going to be meted down. But don't worry, she assures everyone that their conversation was just purely social in nature. They talked about golfing, they talked about grandchildren, about their vacations and stuff like that. Nothing about the elephant in the room that is Bill Clinton's wife, Hillary. Now, even the Democrats are saying, wow, this was in really bad taste. It's obviously going to raise concerns about a possible conflict of interest while his wife is under federal investigation. And of course, it doesn't give the Justice Department the appearance of independence. It makes them look like a Department of Justice straight out of 1984. And so even now you have the Democrats coming out and saying, I think she should have steered clear even of a brief, casual social meeting with the former president. Exactly, not meeting with him on a plane privately, unannounced, just totally random. And of course, Donald Trump is agreeing, and he is raking them over the coals for this, saying this was terrible, and now it's such a big story that even the liberal media is making it a big story because it's really ridiculous, especially when this came out today. The State Department has now announced that they're not going to be releasing any emails from the Clinton Foundation for 27 months. And this is because the Department of Justice filed a motion in federal court seeking a 27-month delay in producing correspondence between former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's 4 top aides and officials with the Clinton Foundation and Teneo Holdings, which is, of course, a closely allied PR firm that Bill Clinton helped launch, and Huma Abedin also worked at Teneo Holdings as well. So the Department of Justice is now going to push back the release of any emails between the Clinton Foundation and Hillary at the State Department until, if she gets elected, it'll be 22 months into her presidency. So they're pushing it back. They're totally protecting this candidate that they want to see become the next president. So the American people obviously have a right to see what's going on with the Clinton Foundation and seeing if there was any conflict of interest there. There is currently an FBI public corruption probe underway investigating whether Clinton used her position to benefit or recruit donors to the Clinton Foundation. Of course she did, but obviously these are conflicts of interest made possible by the activities of Hillary Clinton's State Department, where billions of dollars were funneled through, using it as their own little private slush fund. And now this is interesting because the State Department originally estimated that 6,000 emails and other documents were exchanged by the aides and the Clinton Foundation. But a series of errors the department told the court about on Wednesday now means the total has grown to 34,000 plus potentially responsive documents. So they were communicating with officials at the Clinton Foundation and Teneo Holdings about 700 times each month. That is a lot of emails, and this is what the people need to see. This is where the pay-to-play comes in. This is where we find out about her selling all the uranium production in the U.S. to the Russians and making all the bad deals for the American people with the Chinese. You know, it's not just about the fact that she set up her private email server, even though she is a federal employee there who has accountability and needs to have her emails be subject to FOIA requests, you know, as if that wasn't fishy enough. But now even the Washington Post is saying, okay, she's getting a little too hard to continually back. They say Hillary Clinton's email story continues to get harder and harder to believe. Indeed, I'm surprised it's taken them this long to finally admit that they're accountability, their journalistic integrity is being questioned by constantly backing her when it's just blatantly. So on Monday night, the AP published a piece noting the release of an additional 165 pages of emails that Hillary sent from her private email address. So these were emails that hadn't been previously released, and they were only made public because of a court order in response to a FOIA request. And the only reason they were able to request this is because they were able to say, okay, well, she doesn't have an official email, but we want HRC, anything that includes Clinton mail. So they had to do a little digging and find this out because the State Department didn't provide it to them. So you'll recall that Hillary Clinton said she turned over everything to the State Department. And that was something she came right out and said, but that was just one lie that has been busted here with this latest release. So initially she said that she set up a private server out of convenience. She didn't want to have to carry all of these devices. It was purely personal. But now these emails show, she says, I've just realized I have no idea how my papers are treated at state. Who manages both my personal and official files? I think we need to get on this ASAP to be sure we know and design the system we want. That sounds a lot more like an active participant in setting up this private email server, not as if she just was listening to what her IT guys told her would be more convenient with everything. So this is a much more active agency than Clinton has previously let on. Like she said in some other emails that weren't released to the state, she wanted to make sure that her personal and work emails never got mixed up. And so it just lets people know that she was far more engaged with how it all should look to the government. And the fact that the Department of Justice is going to back her until after the election is just insane. The American people need to call them out on this. But of course, we've got the federal regulations of the internet coming our way. Now, they'll protect Hillary Clinton, but you and I, our freedom on the internet is absolutely, once again, at stake here. And this warning is actually coming from the FCC and FEC commissioners. They're saying this is so bad. Federal regulations of the internet are coming. Of course, Matt Drudge warned about this when he was here in studio. But they say the Democrats are now targeting content and control of the internet, especially from conservative sources. And they're pushing hard to layer on new regulations and even censorship under the guise of promoting diversity while policing, bullying, and other things. It's a cloud over your free speech. So we'll definitely have to pay attention to what they're working on, these new bills that they've got coming up. Now, let's give some credit where it's due. We have some U.S. airstrikes killing at least 250 ISIS fighters. Now, this was a U.S.-led coalition, a series of deadly airstrikes around the city of Fallujah in Iraq. They killed at least 250 ISIS fighters. At least 40 vehicles were destroyed. And if those numbers are confirmed, this would be among the most deadly strikes ever against the jihadist group. Trump, of course, says it's a little too late. They had the opportunity to take a whole bunch of them out when they could, but instead, they're just opening up the borders here. And Donald Trump is now warning that a lot of Syrian refugees are actually getting into the U.S. These are ISIS members. And he's saying that they're being allowed to pose as Syrian refugees. And he's saying that basically we're going to be afraid to walk outside if this situation doesn't get under control. He said that it's a very large group of people. It's only getting bigger. And if Clinton gets in, it's going to be massive. We won't even have a country anymore. And indeed, the Washington Post last week, it kind of went under the radar. They released a graphic of where the Islamic State's suspected inroads into America are. They put out this graphic of the 88 men and women around the country who have been charged in connection with the Islamic State so far. And this map is all over the place. These people are in just about every single state in the country. More on that later when Margaret Howell joins me in studio. Of course, ISIS released their own map showing all the countries that they claim that they have global influence in as well. But, you know, this is just something that we're going to have to continue to deal with as they're pushing for open borders. But we'll have gun regulations for you and I. Meanwhile, Fast and Furious can be shipping weapons, even ongoing now, to jihadis in other countries. Now, Judicial Watch has actually come out saying that a gun sold illegally off book in Phoenix made its way to the Paris terror attacks that took place last year. This was an agent from the ATF who was able to trace this gun's serial number back to Phoenix, which is, of course, the site of Operation Fast and Furious. Now, the Phoenix gun owner who the weapon was traced back to had 2 previous federal firearms violations, one for selling a weapon illegally and one for possessing an unregistered automatic weapon. But the ATF leaders were very insistent on going out of their way to keep this information under the radar. Don't upset this guy. Don't get him mad. We don't want him to go public. Why not? Was this dealer involved in Operation Fast and Furious? Now, we had Lieutenant Colonel Matt Smith-Meck on the Alex Jones Show earlier this year, and he said this is absolutely ongoing, and Fast and Furious is being used to get weapons into the hands of terrorists.
What I would speculate is dovetailing on what Tosh Plumlee has been on your program before and talked about. This is I think, part of a much larger international gun running operation. As a matter of fact, a person in Congress had asked me to ask this central character, this integral figure that still is trying to help the Terry family, congressional oversight, that you have a nexus between Fast and Furious, and if not Benghazi, at least the Middle East. We know from accounts from the folks who were actually involved with running these weapons in September of 2010, weapons separate from what we call Fast and Furious were run down to Mexico, down to a town in Mexico, Caborca, actually, met with an international Middle Eastern arms dealer and en route over to the Middle East. This happened at least 3 times. Again, starting in September of 2010, and I think of great import is a Moroccan DST commander. Their DST is their internal security forces. On 16 October 2010, reported to his supervisors that Fast and Furious weapons were in the Kingdom of Morocco en route to arm the rebels in Algeria. So here we have now a nexus from weapons going across the southern border into Mexico, and then from there going out to God knows where.
Wow. And I know some of the NATO sources, the Plumlee and others, have said that, and then so much of what Plumlee said 3-4 years ago has come out and been exactly true. We now have so many of the heroes that survived, who were on the ground, who got the sat phone calls from the State Department, from orders that no, the Secretary says stand down, and we have them now on Fox News, basically exposing what Hillary's done. And we know that there's a conduit basically fencing the guns through Mexico and then out to the Middle East. Simply amazing. And then you're breaking down intel with all your sources that it's still going on. That is mind-blowing. I mean, I know you're here talking about it. I know Breitbart's reported on some of this. What can we do as investigative journalists out there listening, myself included, to draw more attention to this? I mean, what's the bottom line narrative? I mean, this just sounds like outrageous tyranny. It's not just going to drug cartels. Now it's going to ISIS and Al-Qaeda, Stinger missiles out of Benghazi. We know that now. I mean, when I was told that by Colonel Schaefer 3-4 years ago, I couldn't believe it. I mean, he got in trouble for saying it on air. It's been turned out to be true. I mean, I believed him. It was just unbelievable. And then now we got it from all these other sources. I mean, the military knows about it. How do they get away with this?
Boy, sir, it's as Lenin said, any lie told big enough or often enough is believable. And I think people are hoping the American people just forget about it. We have a short attention span, unfortunately. But for me, it's very personal in that Brian, besides being a Border Patrol agent, was also a former Marine. I'm a former Marine. We do not let Marines stay on the battlefield, whether it's their body or their reputation or their soul. So for me, it's personal. And what I would say, sir, is we have made contact with Tristan Levitt at House Oversight, with Jason Foster in Senator Grass's office, and unfortunately, and I'd like to have certainly Kent come back in here. Those folks, the Terry family, Kent in particular, not even getting the courtesy of return phone calls.
Amazing. Stay right there, sir, because you make a good point. You can stay longer, but Kent Terry, Brother Brian Terry's got to go in about 5 minutes. So you've heard the powerful points that Matt's made here, Colonel has made. What can you add to this? What else would you like to impart to folks about your brother, sir?
Give Brian the honor he deserves. I mean, don't shrug them off, throw them under the rug like he's some piece of dirt. And that's what this country's doing. Just not the country. Just, the Congress and senators promised my family justice and accountability. Even Elijah Cummings promised my mom. And guess what? Nothing. Nothing has happened. They don't keep in contact with us. They don't tell us nothing. It's always, every time they do call us, they want to know what we know. And it's like, I'm getting sick of it. I mean, like I said, my brother served 20 years to this country, over 20 years. And this is what he gets in return?
Well, he was doing his job too good, and that's obvious, and he is a hero, and he helped unravel so much of this, so at least the public knows. But you're right. He's like the string that'll unravel the whole sweater. That's why they want it shut down. But thank God, good ATF agents and others, and people like yourself and your family having courage, and Lieutenant Colonel Smith-Meck and others. In court of public opinion, people pretty much know what happened. But to me, it's so amazing that it's ongoing. I mean, if we just let your brother hang out there and don't stand up for him, we're all in danger. And I wish some of the public out there got how important this is. If they can get away with crimes of this magnitude, Kent, we're all in trouble. Do you agree with that?
Yeah. And another thing is, too, with all these ISIS threats and all these ISIS coming through the border, what makes you think they're not going to grab these weapons that are down in Mexico and use them on a terrorist act here or another school shooting or a multiple shooting?
People desperate for staples like milk, rice and flour stormed a supermarket warehouse in Guyana City.
If you go back to 2007, the British Ministry of Defense came out and echoed a Department of Defense report from here in the U.S. saying that beginning in the year 2016, right through 2020 to 2030, that they believe there would be massive multi-100% food price increases worldwide. And that during that global meltdown, that there would be incredible social unrest that would depopulate much of the earth. Now, in 2016, Vice magazine and other publications are reporting on a 2015 report produced by the U.S. government, the UN, and scores of foreign nations, as well as the State Department, overseen by food giant Cargill, the World Bank, and most importantly, the World Wildlife Fund. The World Wildlife Fund is a eugenics, anti-human organization set up by Prince Bernhard, who also founded the Bilderberg Group and who was a Nazi officer. In this new FEMA report, with headline, FEMA contractor predicts social unrest caused by 395% food price spikes, you learn that this is a report filed with governments and major institutions overseen by a contractor that since the 1940s has been the main advisor for the U.S. Navy Marine Corps. Now, all of this said, governments and corporations and institutions are stockpiling food and weapons. They're digging in. They're getting bunkers. Elites are fleeing to places like New Zealand en masse. We've gone from financial meltdown and huge regional wars being a possibility to being a probability to more and more becoming an inevitability. Number one, everybody needs to be able to protect themselves. Everybody needs friends and family they can rely on in crises. And everyone needs high-quality storable foods and high-quality water filtration systems. But we're offering the biggest wide-spectrum sale ever on preparedness items, 20 to 40% at InfoWarsStore.com. On InfoWars Select, high-quality storable foods, the highest quality, the lowest prices, powered by My Patriot Supply. We also sell their food as well, their full spectrum. And all of their water filtration systems across the board, from gravity-fed systems like Alexa Pure and ProPure, to shower filters, to survival straws, you name it, it's all 20 to 40% off right through July 4th at InfoWarsStore.com. I know I personally am getting prepared. The warning signs are insane. Take advantage, 20 to 40% off until early next week with the 4th of July holiday special at InfoWarsStore.com.